Hey guys, it's Joystick, and I was going to tell you a story, but I'm not very good at storytelling. So I'll just talk like I normally do, and it'll probably be a lot better than actually storytelling. So what we're going to go over today is or the events that happened after my Oblivion Let's Play, and leading into our new character that we'll be playing in Skyrim. So let's begin, shall we? Let me take a drink of pop here. Alright, so let's begin. So, once Rion left the Dark Brotherhood and went back with Nishka to buy a house in Leowyn, they settled down there for a little bit. They bought a house. Well, they bought the house and they furnished it with all sorts of stuff. Some of Rion's trophies. None of it that was remotely to his thieving or remotely linked to his thieving, because he didn't want that part of his past to show up through his son. 'Cause he was a little ashamed of what he had to do to provide for his family, but he didn't want his son growing up to know that. So they decorated it, bought a few things. It wasn't a great house there, but it was decent. So they made do. Anyway, so after about 9 months, give or take 2 or so weeks, they gave birth. They named their kid Balin Dunmer. So Balin Dunmer grew up in the house in Leowyn. But as you know, Rion was trying to be the best father figure that he could, but being as a thief slash almost assassin, like he did the best that he could. So growing up, Balin, they had a lot of books in the house because Nishka was kind of a bookworm, which which was alright with Rion. He didn't mind. She spent most of her times in books, but it was alright. They were happy together. But his son, Balin, got into some of the books, and ugh, frog in my throat. So he got into some of the books. He started reading about like the Knights of the Old and the Knights in like shining armor. It kind of had like an honest like fascination with them, which kind of got him excited. He's like, I want to be a knight. I want to be a knight. But his dad forbid any sort of fighting or combat. He wanted him to grow up a normal citizen of Tamriel and not a warrior or not any sort of killer type. So he let him pursue his fantasies, and he watched him play with his wooden sword in the backyard, but nothing that seemed too dangerous or blatantly apparent to Rayon about what his son was. One thing about his son too was that he was really curious, so it kind of worried Rion. He didn't know what he might get into, but he kind of brushed it under his side. So it was about 15 years later. Balin was about 16 or 17 at this time, and he got his first job working in the city. And he was working a menial task job. Absolutely hated it. He would sweep the streets of Leowyn, which was, as you all know, are very, very dirty. So he did that for a while, but he always kept his fantasies of being a knight alive, and he was still curious. So his curiosity still got him into trouble. He got arrested a couple times for trying to um, check out things he wasn't supposed to check out, going into rooms he wasn't supposed to get in. So he spent a couple days in jail. Rian was very, very pissed about his troublemaking. So as time goes by, 6 or 7 more years go by. Balin was about 27, 26, and he had moved out. But his father and he kept in touch with his father and mother. He lived in Leowyn in a different house, working a different job, working at one of the bakeries there. And one day he was given an offer to go to the Imperial City. So he decides to go to the Imperial City. And along the way he arrives in the marketplace, and along the way he stops by the Thieves Guild, or what he didn't know was the Thieves Guild area. Walks in there by mistake, completely by mistake. But he goes in and he sees all these people, and they're like, "Oh, you must be Rion's son." He's like, "Who are you guys?" Because Rion hadn't been seen for a while from the Dark Brotherhood, but they had known that he wanted to give up his life. But they knew him as two different names. They knew him as the Grey Fox and Rion. So he goes inside. He was welcomed, got some hot tea, and he starts looking around with his curiosity. And down in the basement, he discovers one of their greatest treasures, the Elder Scroll. And as many of you know, nobody knows the power hidden within an Elder Scroll. So, some say that the Elder Scrolls are connected to our destinies. And while Balin went down there to look at the Elder Scroll, he looks at it, and he doesn't know what's going on. He sees flashes of light, and he kind of feels himself losing control. And soon after, he realizes he's not in the same place anymore. He's towards the border of Skyrim. He doesn't know where he is, what time it is. He looks around. Nothing looks the same as it did. Little did he know that he had actually been sent forward 200 years in the future to the events that to how do I say this? To the events. Well, he was sent 200 years in the future on the border of Skyrim, not knowing where he was. So he decides to travel forward. He decides to go to try to figure out where he was. So he goes north a little bit, trying to discover what's going on. He's discovered by an Imperial scouting group, which take him into custody and put him on a cart. He doesn't know where he's going, but that's alright, because his story's just being told. So, we'll see what happens with Balin in the Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim. Oh, and one more thing. I'm going to post this at the end of the video, so if you have any questions about Balin, feel free to ask them. I may or may not do a Q&A, depending on how many questions I get. If I get a little bit of questions, I'll just answer them in the comments, but feel free to ask any questions about his personality and whatnot, and I may answer them if I feel like it. But I probably will, because I'm a nice guy. So, ask your questions about him, and I'll answer them in the best of my abilities. So, there you go.